This week, we're gonna take an unusable garage, because that doesn't fit, and turn it into a wicked office music studio. Time away from the kids. Come for us on a journey as we show you step by step on how to come up out of the ground, get it insulated, get it signed off, and create an awesome space. Like and subscribe if you enjoy this. We'll see you in a bit. Let's go. This is a very normal looking UK garage. A lot of the garage dimensions were designed in the UK when cars were small, when the Mark 1 Ford Escort was the car to have. Since then, cars have got bigger, wider, longer and taller, but this is what we get to play with. They are a really efficient way of giving more space on the floor of your house. This particular garage was a little bit different than what we normally see. It has an integration from the old house into the garage with an electric meter and a gas meter, which is showing a little bit of a curved ball. So after lots of cups of coffee, does anybody want coffee? Because that's normally thinking juice. I just made coffee. We decided that we were going to stud off the wall there to create a square shape and then create an access through our new internal wall into those particular meters that we need. The silver foil that you can see on the floor, this is PIR board. We're using this to build up the floor of our little section that we're missing. This then gives us something where we can put the floorboards on top of it to fill in the gap. We had to remove a little bit of the wall, and you can see those grey block things. They're actually a product called thermalite blocks, or an aerated concrete block. They look really heavy, but they're actually not. They're actually quite light because a lot of that brick is made up with air. So it's really good thermally. It's not as strong as a concrete block. They're really easy to lay, so it was quite common in these big developments to make sure they use them. It's faster, cheaper, easier, warmer. That works. We've got our little patch of floor sorted. It's time to look at, right, what's the next thing needed in order to progress this forward? So we know that concrete takes time to dry, and we have to put a footing in, or a concrete pad, in order to be able to build bricks or blocks up of. What the guys are doing is they're cutting a channel in order to prepare the sub base for the concrete to be poured in. Now we use the Cut Anything 9000. It's pretty dusty, so the guys have put on a water attachment to try and manage the dust. Then it's a case of digging out the footing deep enough so that it's strong enough to take our brick wall, which is going to be installed shortly. On a small site like this, space is really important. Let's whip out the garage door and all of the supporting structure around it to give the boys somewhere to work. We're really lucky. This one actually came out in panels, which meant that we could slide them out one by one. Then they've disassembled the frame, and that is going to give us loads more space. One thing to note though, we've now got a massive hole in the side of the house. The garage door was your only security device, so make sure that if you're going to tackle this job yourself, that you have ample time to get some type of structure in to stop the bad boys from coming in and knocking on your front door in the middle of the night.
What the f*** are you?
With the door out of the way and cleaned up, next step for us is to make safe the electrics. We've called in the electricians, they've come over, pulled the lighting circuit and the power circuit so we can move on with the next steps. It's really important to do this now. There's nothing worse than putting a drill or a screw or a saw through a cable. It hurts, it's scary. Get the sparkies in early. In this one we had a simple pendant light and a switch and some sockets. It's really important to make sure you get these organized early. Have a think about how many lights you're going to want in your project. Now this is really important for later, because you may need to make some fuse board adjustments in order to carry the loading of your sockets depending on how many you have. It's time for us to move on with the next step. We're going to focus on the floor. First stage with this is to get a damp proof membrane down. Now that is a black piece of plastic which sits on top of the existing slab. That stops any moisture from coming up through the concrete pad into your new room. Once that's down, we can then bring in something called kiln dried sand. Now this sand is specifically designed for leveling out floors. On a traditional garage build in the UK, the front of the garage slopes out, so that if you were to park your tiny little Ford Escort in there and it's been raining, which it does quite a bit in the UK, the water off the car is going to end up on the floor. Garage floors are designed for the water then to run out underneath the garage door and onto your driveway. We need to get rid of that. They can then screed flat the sand, ready for the next process. Once we've got that done, we can then throw another layer of plastic over top of it. That there is to create a secondary moisture barrier. Now it's time for us to bring in our insulation. Now we've used a particular thickness of insulation here to make sure that we're able to match the heights of the existing house to our new garage conversion. Sometimes in order to hit the right floor level, you need to bring in layers of this PIR board. Now that's absolutely fine. The only thing we would say is make sure that if your long bits are running one way when you lay your first layer, turn 90 degrees for your second layer. Now this makes sure that there's no joins directly sitting on top of each other. Like most tasks like this, it's really important to work as clean as you possibly can. Get a task done, clean up. Get a task done, clean up. It will be so much more comfortable, especially on your knees. When you're working around like this, you'll end up with a screw or a stone or something sticking right into your knee, and every builder or floor layer knows exactly what we're talking about. Clean up after yourself. Before we can move on to the next step, the guys need to tape the joins. What this does is creates a completely sealed layer of insulation, and we use something called foil tape. Now that means that no moisture is going to penetrate up through, although it would be doing incredibly well to go through 2 layers of insulation, 2 layers of DPM, and then to get to the tape. But hey, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. So tape your joins, stops everything from moving around. Then we can start working towards the finished floor. This product you can see here is a man-made chipboard. What it does is interlocks the sheets using a tongue and groove system. One thing to note, as this room gets warmer, everything inside it is going to expand. Make sure that when you're laying down these tongue and groove floorboards, around the perimeter, you make sure that you leave a 10 to 15 mil gap all the way around it. That allows for expansion when it gets hot. And again, as we have on all of our sites, it's lovely to see the building inspector come around and inspect everything we've done, make sure we've done everything the way it's meant to. Big green tick. Time to move on. Once the first board is down and set, you can then glue the tongues, push it all together. This floor floats, so there is no mechanical fixings going down into the insulation or into the concrete or anything underneath it. The weight of the floor and the weight of everything you put on top of it, that holds the floor in position. With that all down, it's time for a really social break. The next step is something that we like to do, is board the ceiling first. We do that because it makes it easier to board the ceiling without any walls in the way. We use square edge plasterboard. Because we use a skim finish and we plaster the whole ceiling, as opposed to a lot of the world where they simply plaster the joins and then leave the middle of the board. Like what we said earlier, it's time now for the boys to secure the site, ready for the next day. Right, now we're back. Next day. They've taken off our security. It's time now to build the stub walls. So what the guys are doing is making sure that the cables that the Sparkies put in earlier come out through the top plates in the location that our lovely electricians have asked them to be. From there, it's a case of base plate down, screw that into the chipboard, and then we can start infilling the studs, which is going to form our new wall of our garage conversion. We've chosen to use an old money 4x2 timber and new money 100x47. We've used that in order to create enough void for us to put our insulation in later. Now the symptoms of not enough insulation are it's too hot in summer and it's too cold in winter. 100 mils is enough considering we have no exposure to this to the outside. All of the walls in here are internally heated, so we're simply putting this as an additional layer. It also is going to help with acoustic properties. Once the uprights are in, it's quite simple. You can throw a row of short bits of timbers, which are most commonly called in the UK noggins, throw them across the middle. That gives the wall a little bit more bracing. Like what we said before, the meat is going to be left intact in behind this wall. We need to create a hatch or a little opening which can be put into the wall afterwards, and that's what the guys have done here. That's what that little box is. The other thing the guys have done here is we are fixing a radiator onto this wall. In order to make it easier for us later, what we're doing here is fitting some OSB or some basic material sheet, which is going to then give us something to screw into once the client has confirmed the location of the new radiator. Being organized on a building site is really important. What we had to do now is load all of the big material into the garage because we're going to put a brick wall in front of it. Once the wall's built, getting that material in is going to be really difficult. From there, we're building a normal stud wall like you saw before. The difference with this one is we're fixing an 11mm OSB board on the outside. Now this forms two purposes. Firstly, it creates a structural element. Secondly, it gives Howard, from Howard Bruce, something to fix his wall ties into on the brickwork. Now that stud wall's built, we've got the OSB on the outside, there's one more step on the timber wall that we need to do, which is to install a breathable membrane. Before we do that, it's time for Howard to bring some of the bricks up out of the ground off our footing, which has had a few days to dry. You can see here we've actually used two different types of bricks. Something called below DPC and above DPC. The original house has 4 or 5 courses, which are these yellowy bricks below it, and then there's a layer of plastic that goes on top of it, and then we come up in the orange brick, which you see above it. The breathable membrane that we spoke about is this blue layer here. That gets stapled to the outside of the wall. Then Howard is working his magic, bringing the brick up, and you can see the change in the colours. That's just to match the original house. You don't need to do this. We just like to try and match into the original as much as possible. Like in all of our other builds, Howard, old school, loves the traditional methods. You can see his string line here. That makes sure that the bricks all stay perfectly flat. What you can see Howard laying here is something called a soldier course. We've laid all of the bricks on there flat, but to match the original house, we're turning just before we hit the window sill, and that there is going to be a bunch of bricks stood up on their end, which is called a soldier course. Now, as Howard's the only one here, he does a solid and brought the camera inside. Thanks a lot, Howard. Appreciate it, buddy. As the sun rises on a new day, it's time for us to get back inside. You can see here the guys have got most of the insulation done, and that green stuff that you can see on the left hand side, that's what's called a vapor check or a vapor barrier. This is a really thin piece of plastic, and that gets stapled to the studs as one final prevention, just in case any moisture was ever trying to get through everything else that's there. Now the bricks are gone off, we can start thinking about what we're going to do outside. The old garage had this lintel running above it. And you can see the soldier course with a windowsill and the soldier course above it. We've got to try and make that look a bit prettier. So what Callum and Mark have decided to do is glue a piece of soffit board onto it, which will match really closely to the existing house. So that we don't have to keep putting the timber up and down and up and down and making this site secure, easiest way to do this, put the window in. That's what's about to happen. The windows are UPVC to match the rest of the house. The process of this is pretty simple. Screw the sill down into the brick, then slide the window in, it comes pre-glazed, and then it's a case of fixing it through into the frame, sealing the gaps, job done. With the windows sealed, it's time for us now to start boarding the inside. This is where it really starts to come together. It's a pretty simple process. We like to throw the board straight over any opening and then cut out the bit in the middle that we don't need, like where the window is. Once you've done that, you can finish the rest of the room, seal all the edges, and then we're starting to work towards the finish of this conversion. So after another break full of philosophical conversation, it's time for the guys to start getting onto the scrim tape. Now the scrim tape is a tape that goes over all of the joins in the plasterboard and helps bridge the gap, and it gives the skim or the plaster something to stick to. Now skimming in the UK is a gypsum based product which gets mixed up in a big bucket with water. That there creates a plaster which is installed by a trowel, 2 layers of about 1.5–2 mils. That then is polished and gives you a beautiful finish ready for painting. Now on this project we didn't actually have to paint it because the lovely client wanted to do it themselves. So this is as far as we're taking it until we're going to get right to the very end. So without further ado, after it's plastered, the client's been busy little bumblebee, they've painted it. Here's what our lovely new garage conversion looks like now. So here it is. This is a wicked multi-purpose space. Come in and have a look around it. It looks a little bit different. This is a real multi-use space. It's to get out of the kitchen dining table when you're at work. It's also a place to come and have some zen, make some music, really creative space, acoustically awesome, and with some wicked neon lights.